Tomorrow, the west front of the US Capitol building in Washington will be the most carefully watched spot in the world. Donald Trump will take the oath of office for the second time and become the 47th president of the United States, a source of joy for many and horror for others. How is he going to change America? How is he going to change the world? Time to fasten our seatbelts. Welcome to the TVP World studio in Warsaw. Thank you for joining. I'm Grzegorz Nawrocki, and co-hosting the show with me is Małgorzata Bonikowska from the Center of International Relations.
Welcome. Starting with a question being asked on all continents today. What kind of America will emerge tomorrow and the day after?
We can't be sure exactly what Donald Trump's politics will be, but we know it's going to be fast. Fast and furious, as a matter of fact. Speed will count just as much as content.
The campaign promise, Make America Great Again, must be delivered. But what's on the menu? Immigration? Borders?
Tariffs on foreign goods, climate regulation cuts, defense spending, well, Greenland.
And of course, the war in Ukraine. All of these issues will have a huge impact on Europe.
One we are still unable to fully imagine. Are we ready for America run by President Trump? A businessman, billionaire, 2024 Time Person of the Year, former and soon to be once again President of the United States. But on a darker side, a populist accused of abuse of power, incitement of insurrection, financial misconduct, election interference and sexual misconduct. Donald J. Trump, the embodiment of the American dream or the wicked master of post-politics. Trump has long been a well-known figure in the American public. He transformed his father's construction company into a multi-sector business empire. Thanks to his leading role in the television program The Apprentice, which aired on NBC for over a decade, he became a celebrity. In 2011, amid speculation about his presidential ambitions, Trump stated,
"And we are going to make our country great again."
Trump later trademarked this slogan and published a book, Great Again, How to Fix Our Crippled America.
Including the vets.
At that time, he was ranked 72nd among the most influential people in the world and secured 324th place on Forbes Billionaires rankings. In 2016, as the Republican candidate, Trump won the presidency despite receiving fewer popular votes than his Democratic opponent, Hillary Clinton. 4 years later, a record-breaking number of over 81 million Americans voted for Joe Biden. However, 74 million Americans still showed their support for Trump, highlighting a deeply polarized America.
Love Trump! We love Trump!
Last year, Donald Trump made a spectacular comeback, winning both the popular and electoral votes.
Kamala, you're fired! Get out of here! You're fired!
The Republican Party also secured a majority in Congress, giving him a strong mandate to govern, despite all the accusations against him. Will Trump truly make America great again? What does this vision entail, and what global consequences might it bring? How should Europe position itself in response to the new Trump administration? Well, these are still open questions. Trump is a phenomenon himself, but he's also an embodiment or a sign of the new times, the new ways politics is run, new dreams and fears and concerns that the American people express. What are they? What is the background? With more on that, here's Małgorzata Bonikowska.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Trump is more a phenomenon, social phenomenon, than a typical political leader. And I think it's a consequence of a long transformation, some change in American mindset, which happened some time ago. But let's have a look at some more
Facts.
Information. Yes, let's concentrate first on that very interesting diagrams. It shows the results of the presidential elections in the last decade. See, 2016, Donald Trump won. For the first time he contested for the president. He got 63 million votes. Well, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but because of a very interesting American system, Donald Trump became a president, so he got more electors' votes, so he won. But then, 4 years later, he got 74%. He lost. But his supporters, the number increased. Interesting.
It grew considerably, as a matter of fact.
Yes. And then last year, as you know, Trump got over than 77 million Americans who voted for him. He won again. But the conclusion is, whatever happens, he wins or he loses, the supporters increase.
Is growing.
That's right. That's very interesting.
Steadily growing.
But then let's have a look at America, how we have a situation today. America voted last year, and as you see, red color Republicans, Trump, and blue color Democrats. America went red, definitely. Most of the states voted for Trump, and then, you know, the blue color is only in the states which are traditionally with Democrats, like California or New York. Electors voted for Trump, 312 votes. So yes, Trump was elected with strong majority. But not only the president. You know, American elections mean also that Americans vote for the Congress. Let's see the situation in the Congress. Well, it turns out that the Republicans took everything. They took Senate, 53 against 47, and they took House of Representatives. 220 against 215. So they have a very stable majority. They can really govern. So
although it's a slim majority.
Yes, but stable.
Yeah.
So Trump really is leading. Now let's have a look at what do Americans think. So why is it so that the people in America vote for Trump? As you can see, the blue dots are Democrats. Red dots are Republicans, the voters for these parties, and then in the middle, independents. So those people who vote for Republican Party actually have three major issues. As you can see, 69%, 71%, 57%, meaning economy, increasing cost of housing and everyday expenses. Then immigration, very, very high number. And finally, crime. So this is what the Americans are worried about, and they see Trump as a very strong leader, as a tough guy, as a boss, you know, from this TV serial, and he is effective. He can fix it, and then if somebody works with him and is not good, then he fires this person. That's the image Trump built.
So it's an X-ray of American soul.
Yes, and also you can see the other thing, how polarized is America, because the voters of Democratic Party in many of these issues have completely opposite opinion. For example, see, immigration for those who vote for Democrats is not really important, right? So America, unfortunately, is deeply polarized.
Perhaps it's not, in view of what you have just said, it's not surprising that he won the election, Donald Trump won the election, but are you surprised by the scale of this victory?
Yes, I am, and I think many people were, because the surveys were showing that Harris and Trump were going 50-50. So people expected this little margin between them. While it turned out that Trump really got majority and it's strong, and now he has all really rights to be tough with America. Let's see. Okay,
let's see. Thank you very much, Małgorzata, for this background. Thank you very much. A former US ambassador to Poland, Georgette Mosbach, recently visiting Warsaw, called Mr. Trump a visionary and a disruptor as well. Time to test this vision and disruption. Indeed, the motion tonight is Trump will make America great again. Well, will he? Let's hear the voices for and against. And ladies and gentlemen, the speakers tonight. For the motion, Dr. Milo Jones, Senior Advisor for Geopolitics and Technology, Arcano Partners in Madrid, Spain, but living in Warsaw. Welcome to the program, welcome to the show. Very nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, please take your seat. Against the motion now, Dr. Urszula Gacek, former ambassador to the Council of Europe and Consul General in New York, currently an observer for OSCE election missions. Good evening. Welcome. Please take your seat. Yes. For the motion again, Dr. Clifford Bates, American Studies Center, Warsaw University. For the motion, welcome. Good evening, sir. And against the motion, final main speaker tonight, Aleksandra Karasińska, director of Ringer Axel Springer Foundation, journalist and podcaster. Welcome. Yes. And for the summary of this debate later on, we're going to Washington this time. Anthony Silberfeld will be joining us. Mr. Silberfeld is the director of Transatlantic Program at Bertelsmann Foundation in Washington. Welcome to the program. Nice of you to have joined us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
All right, we'll come back to you at the end of this debate. Thanks a lot. Well, the audience has just voted. The vote has taken place before the start of the show. The results are the following: 37% for the motion and 63% against the motion. We'll compare the results when we vote for the second time at the end of this debate. So let's start with an opening statement from each of our speakers. 2 minutes for each speech, and starting Dr. Milo Jones. Welcome.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm from Manhattan, and living in New York in the 1990s already, it was known that Donald Trump is a vulgar, nouveau riche populist as a businessman. He is also, however, beautifully suited to democracy under digital conditions. And as such, he won what is undoubtedly a firm democratic mandate. The American people very clearly decided that radical awful is better than traditional awful. And so they picked Donald Trump. And it is that democratic mandate that is the first reason I believe Donald Trump will leave America stronger in 4 years than it is now. Simply because that mandate allows him to reconnect both domestic policy and foreign policy with the American middle class that elected him. The second reason I think America will end up stronger is because of the court with which Donald Trump has surrounded himself. And I use that term advisedly, the group of people he has surrounded himself with. These are people who really understand digital technology and really especially understand artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence will be one of the keys to both geopolitical competition with China and restoring American productivity and economic growth to ensure we can deal with the fiscal incontinence that seems to be a structural feature of the American system at this point. And finally, Donald Trump is unpredictable. That's a feature, not a bug. That allows America to retake from our adversaries, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, the strategic initiative. They're not going to wonder anymore what we'll do about them. They're going to wonder what will America do about them.
Dr. Jones, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for that. And the arguments from the other side, the opposite side, Dr. Urszula Gacek.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Will Trump make America great again? Again. So we have to return to history. We have to look at what is Trump trying to take America back to? Some nostalgic vision of the 1950s, of a great economic boom? That's not going to happen again. That was a unique set of circumstances dictated by a post-war recovery. So maybe we see the priority for the American voter is the economy. Number one, of course. So maybe he's going to finish the business he didn't manage to finish in his first term. Maybe that first term was great. Okay, there was COVID, and that maybe changed the optics in so many ways. But did the middle class really benefit so much, this middle class that is his prime target? Yes, they experienced tax cuts. I'll give that. But they also managed to continue to benefit from the Affordable Care Act, so-called Obamacare. It was by the lack of one vote that Trump was not able to repeal that in his first term. I think now, even with a slim majority, he might be successful. If we take tax cuts, but on the other hand, balance what the middle class will lose in terms of higher costs for their health care, and also the impact of tariffs, which in the last term resulted in the average family budget increasing by $800 or so. It also impacted those workers in sectors which face retaliation, like the agricultural sector. So will it be great again? Was it so great the last time round? But it was everything bad in American history. Well, no. What, for me, in America was the greatness was a fair country, an inclusive country, a democratic country. What does Trump, what can he unravel? That, I think, we'll be able to discuss in the panel discussion. But I think he can unravel a lot in terms of civil rights, especially racial
Thank you very much.
disharmony.
Thank you very much. Dr. Urszula Gacek. So will Trump make America great again? And welcome Dr. Clifford Bates.
What we just heard was Operation Fear. This idea that Trump is a devil, Trump is an undemocratic, anti-democratic force that will destroy democracy, liberalism, human rights, civil rights. Horse hockey. Obamacare? Who saved Obamacare? McCain. And why did McCain save it? Because he was bought and paid for. So therefore, we have to understand American politics is like any politics. It's about who has the votes, how they have it, and how it comes. Trump will make America great again because he'll get America believing in America again. The problem with the last 4 years was we had basically a zombie as president. A zombie who everyone knew he was not in charge. He was sleeping half the time. And most of the decision was being done by unnamed staffers with very bad records. Trump, you'll know who is to blame. You'll have accountability. This is important. Good governance requires accountability. Without accountability, you will not have good governance. This is the problem. What does making America great again means? Again, this is a metaphor. Don't read it. She read it literally. Oh, what is great? This is nostalgia. This is a rhetorical trick done by progressives and neoliberals to kind of demonize and to marginalize and to fool most of you, because most of you don't have the knowledge about economics, business, law, and structures of the reality. You rely on shows like this to get you the infotainment to inform you, which that would require a lot more care and attention to. Most of you are low information voters who are easily swayed by media, and therefore, this is my attempt to kind of counter that.
Dr. Bates, it was just the beginning. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this presentation. And finally, Aleksandra Karasińska against the motion.
So, hello, everyone. I'm a journalist and I'm a feminist. I'm a equal rights activist. And I tell you that I'm totally against the notion. So I don't believe that Trump will make America great again. First of all, America is still the biggest superpower in the world. It has the biggest army. It has the biggest economy. The dollar is still the basis of international currency. And also, the system of American allies underpins the peace and stability in Europe, in Asia, and in both Americas. So America is pretty great right now. Of course, it's struggling with many problems, but these problems are not unique to America. Many countries face the same problems. And I don't believe the Trump administration have a solution to these problems, because they, as a populist, say very simple solutions, and the problems are very complex. Let's look at 3 problems. First of all, climate catastrophe. Secondly, tech disruption. And thirdly, rising economical inequalities. So what Trump's proposed to these three problems? First of all, as a climate problem, he says, drill, baby, drill. So more fossil fuels, let's burn more fossil fuels. And because of migration is a result of the climate change, he says, oh, let's build a wall and just throw these people away. Secondly, so very simple answers to very complex problems. Secondly, tech disruptions. You know that these big tech giants are actually taking the narration and can manipulate millions of people in our democracy. And what the Trump administration says? No regulations. So they will be free to do whatever they want with us and with audiences and with our democracy. I don't believe. And inequalities, he will just lower taxes for the billionaires. I don't believe. This kind of America will be great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Alexandra Karasinska. Thank you. Donald Trump definitely has a strong mandate. We've seen that in Małgorzata Bonikowska's presentation a second ago. He's the first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years. That's quite something. What's characteristic for Donald Trump, you've mentioned that, is his unpredictability, and that can be, as a matter of fact, a political asset or political advantage, some people say. But so given that, what can we be sure about this presidency today, just a few moments before it actually starts? Madam Ambassador.
I think the only thing we can predict is that it'll be unpredictable. I think it is, we've already seen a change in rhetoric from, of course, normal campaign rhetoric and then reality bites. But I don't know whether he'll even be delivering on some of the promises he's made. We see the House, we see the Senate. But for some of the really radical changes, he's going to need a supermajority in the Senate. He's also going to need a well-disciplined and also a cohesive Republican Party. And they're a very broad church. So
do you foresee that people will get disillusioned soon about him not delivering on the promises that he's made?
If immigration, for example, is something that we want to see as spectacular, because economic changes take a while to filter through. But mass deportation, well, that you could make a lot of news items out of that. How is he going to achieve that?
Right.
Can he find the funding for it?
Okay.
No,
Dr. Bates, how is he going to achieve that?
Using existing law. Using existing structures. I'm sorry, we can solve the deportation problem very easy. It's under executive orders. Existing law allows for these deportations. There's current money in the system for it. Therefore, that doesn't require the Congress to do anything.
All right, but Dr. Bates, how do you imagine actually getting several million people out of the United States?
Easy, make it unattractive for them. Cut off social programs.
How will you do it?
Cutting off social programs for the illegal aliens, not allowing them to access public activities and activities. Right. Start taxing. Start putting pressure on countries, like, first of all, hitting their remittance to Mexico.
So will you, transport them outside of the United, by trains or by airplanes or by...
You can create a lot of it. Not everyone. What you're going to be doing is about maybe 20,000 to 50,000 criminal illegal aliens will be the initial thing. And then what will happen is that all of a sudden, as the restrictions on illegal aliens start happening,
right.
and punishment of companies and businesses, many Republican businesses, like illegal workers also, once there's enforcement of labor law and labor restrictions, penalizing entities and penalizing states.
All right, so that's easy.
California can lose its money.
That's easy. All right, what's predictable, what's unpredictable, Dr. Jones?
I think in the foreign sphere, Trump is determined to make a big impact and big deals. And he is quite determined to bring in some level of tariffs that will impact both friends and allies. That's been a
centerpiece. So in your opinion,
promise.
It's not just the rhetoric. It's going to happen.
It's a tool.
I think the rhetoric is a tool. I believe that one of the wonderful things from his point of view about tariffs is the cost the American people pay will be quite hidden, and there will be a lot of carve-outs. And this is an economy of favors. American politicians bribe people with their own money by creating exceptions. And there will be a wonderful world of exceptions carved out for those who are in the Mar-a-Lago circle.
Yeah. Alexander.
I think what we definitely can expect is seeing a lot of disarray inside Trump camp, administration and MAGA movement, because it's starting already. And remember the first term, I expect to see the same, and I see a lot of reshuffling. We will face a lot of new names going to the government as on the first term. In a sense of broader sense, I think that we will see a lot of more transactional approach towards.
Because he's a business person and a developer.
Because he's a business person and he thinks in this reality when you can, not in the reality of
Is that
values,
necessarily a bad thing, or could it be a good thing?
It could be bad, because I believe democratic countries share some values, and no matter the cost, we should really stick to those values, like democracy, human rights, etc., and democratic order and peace process. Yeah, so these things. We are allowed to put money into it and have a cost, whereas not everything is transactional in my world. But in Donald Trump's world, everything has a cost, even a human life, even truth, even democracy.
Do you agree with that?
No, I'm sorry. Every world there's costs and benefits. Unless you're cuckoo land, there's going to be costs and benefits. Even human rights, there's costs and benefits. I'm sorry, I don't see NGOs really going out there. I mean, the fact that you're an NGO, who funds you? Millionaires, corporate millionaires, the Soros people, and these kind of people, Gates. There's billionaires who support you.
No.
Oh, you tell me you're not...
You tell me who supports me.
No, but I'm saying is NGOs are private entities.
You would agree that it is a good thing to treat international relations as a transactional issue.
But also...
Do you agree with that?
No, but values play a role. But the problem is, what you think is democracy, many people might not think is democracy. Liberal democracy is only one form of democracy. It's
What's another form of democracy?
Oh, I'm sorry, majority rule. Majority governments. The idea that minorities can trump majorities is
That's quite
oligarchy.
dangerous, Dr. Bates, as a matter of fact. What? Majority rule is quite a dangerous thing.
No, it isn't. That is democracy.
All right, okay.
Traditionally, Americans have used democracy as shorthand for a three-legged stool, which are orderly rotation of power through voting, protection of minority rights, and impartial institutions.
Exactly.
Right now, Donald Trump has only one mandate, which is the democracy side. He has not been given a mandate to assault in serious ways minority rights, and he has not been given a mandate to end impartial institutions. And American greatness rests on those three pillars, not mere democracy.
Right. Dr. Grzegorz, I saw you.
But we also saw how Trump respected democracy. I don't know who was not glued to their television screen in January 2021, seeing the storming of the Capitol.
January 6th, got the date right.
January 6th, yes, we know. But storming of the Capitol, and now Trump proposes clemency for the 1,500 or most of the 1,500 people who have had charges brought against them. What signal does that give to a system which has always hinged on the peaceful transfer of power? So peaceful transfer of power, these democratic standards that are absolutely from the founding fathers ingrained in the United States. You say, it's great as long as I win. As long as I win.
All right.
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry.
Just a second.
She's taking January 6th and ignoring the fact that Democrats have actively challenged the elections in previous times. Al Gore challenged the elections and was protest all across the country.
But accepted.
Only after the thing, and so didn't Trump ultimately accept it.
Peacefully accepted.
No, but there was January 6th pales nothing compared to what happened all through the summer of 2020 and the Antifa riots that killed and destroyed more people.
Right.
We have to clarify one thing. Democracy is really not a majority rule. Democracy is a majority rule under condition that minorities' rights are respected.
That's the liberal democracy view.
No, it's everyone in democratic society has a right to be somehow protected and interests should be represented.
Everyone, yes.
So what is this, the approach, of Donald Trump's America in this regard?
And just in a few sentences, because it's not a debate about democracy itself, okay?
No, but it is about democracy.
In a way.
Because what's happening is, like, even the term populism, which uses opposition, I'm sorry, that's just a Latin word for populus against demos. I mean, it means democracy in Latin. Populism is democracy in Latin. So therefore, those who use it pejoratively are secretly attacking democracy.
A question that's referring to what we're just talking about. What's going now in politics, in American politics, in international politics, what's going to be okay now that wasn't okay in the last years? What should we get used to?
I mean, it depends. There's lots of things we'll get used to. One of the things is that basically the American taxpayers aren't going to pay for freeloading actors. A lot of European powers, a lot of European states are free riders.
You're talking about NATO.
What?
You're talking about NATO.
I mean, not even NATO. I'm on other security arrangements. They are relying on basically the blood and lives of American soldiers to give the security of others, being paid for mostly by the American taxpayer.
Okay.
Now, Europeans do contribute.
Sure.
And they're contributing more because Donald Trump
They're doing it more and more, and Poland is actually at the forefront. Alexander,
Yeah, I disagree with what you just said. It's not the freeloaders. They are called allies, and they are sovereign countries. And after the Second World War, when Americans and allies, won the war with fascism, we had the world order. And definitely America wanted their soldiers to be in Europe because the enemy, the foe, was Soviet Union. So America objective and the cornerstone international policy of the United States and Europe was to contain Russia and Soviet Union. And I believe nothing changed since the collapse of Soviet empire. Russia still, under Putin, is not a democratic state, is a threat to Europe and democratic order. So I believe it's mutually benefiting arrangement between allies in Europe and United States. And if Donald Trump really wishes to the countries in Europe to put more effort into the NATO, then we should discuss as allies and not as a superpower and the countries that depend on him.
Dr. Jones.
I think it's important that Article 5 of NATO was used only once.
Yes.
To support United States. Right? To support United States because you, as United States, needed...
And the support came from the allies, obviously. Yes,
the support came from the allies, but some of that support was
symbolic,
cosmetic, to say the least.
Sorry, dying Polish soldiers dying in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Poland. I didn't mention Poland.
It's not symbolic.
Germany sent people to Afghanistan after 9/11, for example. And do you know that not one German soldier was permitted to leave the base ever after dark, lest they get hurt? That sort of support from our allies is quite offensive to the farm boys who left their bones in the ground because of Afghanistan. So I'm not in any way saying Poland doesn't pull its weight, but plenty of NATO does not.
All right.
And that needs to be faced.
All right, we're running out of time for this part of our discussion, but before we open the discussion to the floor, what should Europe do, in your opinion, to maintain good transatlantic relations with Trump administration, with the United States now?
I talked to Polish officials, Polish government and politicians in the parliament, and they seem to be pretty sure that there will be strong international relationship with United States and Poland.
But let's broaden it a bit, talking about Europe in general, not only Poland.
Well, everybody, as I hear and read, is preparing to talk to Trump, even, Keir Starmer from British government and Emmanuel Macron and the European Union is preparing to sit at the table and listen to what Donald Trump offers and what kind of new global order.
Just to specify it, Aaron Koreva from Atlantic Council says what we have to do, what Europe needs to do, is to demonstrate that we are a reliable partner concerning Asia and the Pacific.
Really?
Yes, that's his opinion.
I mean, I think...
You disagree with that?
No, I believe Trump believes... he likes to talk to powerful entities. That's why he doesn't like the European Union. Divide and rule, it's as long as history. What will happen if we have an administration which is saying they're going to impose selective tariffs on Denmark, which is not willing to give up its sovereign territory in Greenland? So how will the European Union, how will Europe respond? Only with solidarity. That's the only language that Trump will understand. And so if we're going to sit at the table with Trump, if we're going to achieve anything, I think he will ultimately respect a strong voice and not a divided voice.
Would you be okay with Trump or Trump administration, next American administration, invading Greenland?
Well, that's not the issue. That's again.
But that's my question. It might not be the issue, but that's my question. Would you be okay with America invading Greenland?
I'm sorry, America controlled Greenland during the Second World War. Under that, FDR wanted Greenland.
Yes.
This is actually this idea that having Denmark maintain a country that they have sovereignty over, but don't really exercise any, because they're self-governing.
Yeah, but that was a simple question, Dr. Bates. That was a simple question. Would you be okay with that?
Ruled by the Nazis and occupied. So that's a special case.
Yeah.
I don't think most Americans would be very comfortable with
invading
any sort of
Greenland.
invasion. With respect to how Europe as a whole might deal with Trump,
Right. Okay.
the parties I expect to be most surprised are the parties of the right and the so-called other populists. Because ultimately, I don't think Trump believes in that much other than deals. And therefore, I think a lot of the parties of the right in Europe might find themselves simply at the wrong end of a bad deal and not see any sort of ideological solidarity that so many hope for.
Trump didn't exclude the use of force in terms of Greenland. Would you be expecting the invasion of American forces in Denmark?
I would not, and I hope never to see it, and I don't expect to see it. I do.
So that's not the way to make America great again, is it?
It is not. However, strong signals to Russia and China about American ongoing interest in the Arctic and crucial minerals is a way to make America great again, and Trump's rhetorical antics perform that function.
Yeah, just one more sentence and we're opening it up to the floor.
This is my opinion, but I think the whole discussion about Greenland and Panama Canal and Canada is only a smoke. So we will talk about it, but really, the
fire is somewhere else.
The fire is in the 60 days. I predict that the Congress will make a huge cut tax for the billionaires, on expense on very poor families in a Medicaid and seniors from Medicare.
Right. Well, we are more in the studio to ask questions. As usual, we have our marvelous audience. Who usually challenge our guest speakers. So time to open this discussion to the floor.
We have already
Are there any
questions
questions? Yes, please, Małgorzata.
Who is ready for question? Yes, please.
I'm Jakub Żukowski from the University of Warsaw, and I have a question. Do you think whether Donald Trump has a plan for Panama Canal? Whether is he going to do something about it during his presidency?
Right. Thank you.
And it's also a question about, what makes America great again? Controversies around territories or cooperation with countries?
The problem with, can I
Dr.
quickly,
Jones, yes.
maybe you...
No, go ahead.
No, but the problem with Panama is that the Panamanian Treaty has the specific obligations of the country of Panama that they have been breaking for the past 15 years, and that they've actually mismanaged it. They hired out the Panama management to China, you remember this, Chinese firms, which are basically PLA. So therefore, the national security of the United States cannot tolerate the PLA having, or PA-owned companies managing the canal.
So what do you expect to happen? What do you expect to happen?
I think this was a threat.
Concretely.
This was a threat to force the Panamanians to renegotiate the treaty.
So again, it was a rhetorical tool rather than anything else.
It's a strategy. It's a strategy of negotiations.
Okay. Is it a good strategy, Dr. Grzegorz?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't believe, for example, I know a lot of Canadians, and they're a proud nation. They still actually have a king nominally at the head of their government. They're not particularly keen on becoming the 51st state of the United States.
But that's Panama. That's where you're
yes, but we have Greenland, we have Panama, we have Canada. It's the same rhetoric, You say the Panamanians aren't delivering, but what gives America the right to unilaterally go in?
Who created Panama?
French.
It gives. I mean, America has the unilateral. If there's an issue to be discussed, then again,
there's a treaty.
There is
a mutual obligation.
There are many partners who have an interest in the Panama Canal, and again, we're talking about allies sitting down. Maybe pressure does need to be brought on Panama, but not unilateral action by the United States saying, you know, we're gonna fix this according to how we see it.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Aziz, and my question is as follows. President Trump stated that he will end the war in Ukraine. So what kind of scenarios can we envisage, and how far he can go with the potential compromise?
Right. Thank you very much. He actually promised to do it within 1 day. Now, General Kellogg is talking about 100 days, but okay.
Slava Ukraine, I hope under all conditions, a just and lasting peace is brought to that nation. What we do not need to see is a repeat of Arab-Israel wars, Pakistan-India wars, Armenia-Nagorno-Azerbaijan wars. Hopefully, Trump's team will have the maturity and the wisdom to see that a just peace is a lasting peace, and that will take time. And again,
the definition of a just peace, though, might be different in different parts of Europe, including Ukraine, including Russia.
Every square centimeter of Ukrainian territory from 2014 under the sovereign governance of the Ukrainian people, full stop.
Do you think it's realistic?
If I may jump in just to ask one question, is it better for America, it makes America great again if the war is over very soon, or if the conditions of the truce will be fair for Ukraine? What is more important for Trump?
That's a question to everybody.
To everybody.
What we've heard is that Trump and Republicans criticized the amount of help, U.S. help to Ukraine, both military and economic. And this is worrying because actually fighting Ukraine really depends on this help. And without American help, Ukraine will fail, no matter how much Europe will support it. Because right now, we as a European countries, we are not able to provide such in a fast pace the military support. So yes, it's very worrying. We don't know what will happen. I hope that Trump...
What about your intuition? What is going to happen? Because it's not decided. It's not even certain that the aid will be cut.
It's not, but you know what I'm worried about? You know, normally I'm optimistic, but I worry a lot. So the truth is, Putin has, how much I dislike the guy, has a good diplomacy and is really a good negotiator. So he knows the weaknesses of Trump. He sees him. He knows what kind of politics he is. So I'm afraid that Putin will try to end the war, but on his terms, which is very bad news, not only for Ukraine,
do you not think that there's
but
some
for
kind of
Poland and the whole Europe.
And for Taiwan. And that's the hope. Garry Kasparov said, to be a good chess player, you need to see the whole board and think several moves deep. Hopefully, Trump and his people see the whole board and understand this is a Eurasian contest. And the worst possible outcome for the United States would be an unstable Eurasia, and nothing will bring that about quicker than a rapid surrender in Ukraine.
Exactly.
But we talked about this focus on transactional policies, that Trump sees things as, in a business perspective, he doesn't have this vision of that maybe other world leaders share. So I don't know if he's offered a deal by Putin. Will he sell Ukraine? I mean, I wouldn't bet money on it.
Would you?
First of all, let's be honest about this. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, the Ukrainians would have been crushed. Why? Because it was Donald Trump who gave the Ukrainians the Javelin missiles, not the Obama administration. The Obama administration only gave helmets and humanitarian assistance to Ukraine during when the first Russian incursion in 2014.
Right. So in your opinion, Dr. Bates, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
It's going to be a real deal, because in many ways, the Ukrainians,
All right, what kind of deal?
Ukrainians themselves are not willing to, I mean, look at the recruiting.
Would that be the kind of deal that Dr. John was talking about?
I think they're
all the territories before the 2014.
Crimea probably will go, because the Ukrainians are not willing to sacrifice enough soldiers.
But what about Donetsk, Lugansk, and all?
I think those will be more probably returned to Ukraine, because there's a stronger argument that they are being in Ukraine. Because, by the way, those young Russians who live there don't want to be part of Russia.
But do you think
those young Russians want to be Europeans. They don't want to be Russians. They want to be, and maybe this is the problem. See, we have to understand the Donetsk area, Donetsk question is completely different from that of the Crimea question.
But many analysts and many journalists, publicists say that Donald Trump is actually not very interested in either Russia or Ukraine or that conflict. It's just out of his scope of interest.
I believe he just envisioned himself getting a Nobel Peace Prize, and this is what he wants. But this is a joke. But I just wanted to comment something seriously on what you said, because I had a feeling you undermine the Ukrainian commitment to this war and actually bravery of Ukrainian soldiers, men and women.
They are.
And
but they're not recruiting them.
They are not willing to go on the front. I mean, Ukraine is a smaller country. They've sacrificed a lot, and they are not able really to enlist more soldiers.
Yes, they are. They're in Europe. They're working in Europe.
Part of their conscription problems are a direct result of America withholding aid.
Yes,
and therefore, the American Congress is the one that spent those Ukrainian lives and continues to do so. And it's the Republicans. And Donald Trump needs to own that, too, if America wants to be great again.
Let's put a full stop here and take another question. One more question from there. Okay.
So this will be a question that will kind of change the topics. I hope we exhausted that already. It will concern Donald Trump's inner circle. Since Robert F. Kennedy will soon become the Secretary of Health during the Trump's administration, I wanted to ask whether a person who holds such preposterous theories that, for example, fluoride in tap water causes neurodevelopmental disorders or IQ loss or bone cancer, or that HIV does not cause AIDS, or that vaccines are positively related to diagnosis of autism, whether someone like that is really fit to exercise a position of a Secretary of Health.
Right. Okay. Can you say your name?
My name is Adam Pilich from the University of Warsaw.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so in what way this nomination would make America great again?
But that's such a caricature of his position. Because I actually know some of the research about fluoridization, that the chemicals that are involved in fluoridization actually has some impact in people in communities that have high lead levels, and that does cause certain problems. I mean, this is real. Some of these issues are real and complicated, but once we put it on TV, it becomes silly. Okay, this is the problem of real science and real understandings in areas of climate change and health and security, that these are far more complicated. That can't be done in a 6-minute, a 2-minute, 30-second soundbite. These require much more complicated...
No, but certain things, even if you're talking about soundbites, but okay, anti-vaccination movement or anti-vaccination mindset, would it make America great again?
We can argue that there's been some overproduction and use of vaccines in some areas. Pure anti-vaxxing is ridiculous. But the level of vaccinations people require, to the degree they do have them, I mean, this becomes, even in the AMA journals, there were discussions about the side negative effects.
Not about the science, but I think it's about the personalities. So Trump has to pay Robert Kennedy Jr. back for his support. So that's the deal. That's the deal. He has to pay him back. It's transactional. Will he last long in that position? I think Alexander said it. I don't think so.
So answering your question, no.
No, I don't think he's going to last long in that position, because, you know, he will have his 5 minutes. He'll become a burden. He'll become an embarrassment, most likely. And Trump will press that apprentice button and say, you're fired. And that will be the end of...
Before we close this part of the discussion, can I just ask your side about what is your biggest worry, concern, or even more than that, about Donald Trump presidency? And then I would ask you about your biggest sort of hope light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to Donald Trump. So sort of opposite to whatever you're representing today. Yes. In just one sentence, what would be your biggest concern?
My biggest concern is an improper understanding of the degree to which the Ukraine war represents a hinge that if Ukraine loses, all of Eurasia is destabilized and Xi Jinping is emboldened.
So the war in Ukraine, Dr. Bates.
My biggest fear with Trump is that what will happen is that he will get bored with the presidency.
Right.
Because...
and do what?
No, I'm saying is that he might delegate it to other people.
What's your biggest hope and light there at the end of the tunnel?
I hope that Trump term will be a vaccine, actually, to the civic society in the United States. That there will be an awakening of movement, the pro-democratic movement, and women's rights, colored people rights, and LGBTQ plus communities. And I also hope that will shake up the Democratic Party and they will see their fault and start to be like a modern Democratic Party next term.
And Dr. Gacek?
I think for the most divisive, and I look at internal politics, I think the most divisive and the biggest danger I see is dealing with race issues and deriding all the things that became great about America from 1962 onwards. He'll run out of time. 2 years on, we're going to have midterm elections, and voters have shown themselves to be very intolerant of administrations. So if he's going to do anything, he's got 2 years. It's a small window for a lot of programs. Some of them, I don't think he's going to be able to push through.
Meanwhile, we're running out of time, by the way. Right, making a promise is one thing. Delivering on that promise is quite another. How will the slogan "Making America Great Again" translated to concrete policies? To what extent will it strain the US relations with its allies and partners, and what will emerge from his proclaimed disruption? A wrap-up of today's debate from Anthony Silberfeld from Bertelsmann Foundation in Washington and Małgorzata Bonikowska.
Well, you followed our debate. What's your take?
The one thing that I would say, just in terms of a general observation, because I know this is a very delicate conversation, so I want to wade into the pool very, very delicately. And it is about the overall motion, about whether Donald Trump can make America great again. You're making the assumption also that America was once great. And for whom was it great? And I agree with Dr. Bates at the outset when he said, it is a rhetorical device. It really was even more than that. It was an aspirational idea. It was always, which of our political parties will get us closer to this idea of greatness? We've had great moments over the years. World War I, World War II, the Cold War, the moon landing. You could go on with some of the great moments. But was America ever great? I would suggest that perhaps it wasn't. And we really ought to reflect about what it actually means to be great in the first place. And some of the speakers up here alluded to that. The protection of minority rights, protection of progressive values. These are things that I think a lot of Americans can agree on. We have some bipartisanship on a number of issues, whether it be restricting gun rights. I mean, 90% of Americans think that there should be some restriction on the use of automatic weapons, for example. There are areas where we ought to be able to come together to make America great in ways that I think have been described.
Tony, let me put more questions about that, because being American, don't you see that the Americans have changing opinion on America? 30 years ago, they were really thinking it's a great country to live in. They were very proud. Now there are many voices, a lot of things don't work well inside the country. So maybe Trump knows it and Trump feels it, and it's not really a rhetoric. Maybe it's a real worry, like people worry that this country is not great anymore.
Well, look, I think that part of it was touched on earlier. I think it was Dr. Jones who mentioned the digitization of information. And the ability to control information is really critical to this whole conversation, which is perception versus reality, and which actually matters at this point. Americans went to the polls whether the data suggested that crime was up or down, or immigration was up or down, or whether things were more expensive. All the data actually was trending in the direction of Joe Biden, but Americans didn't feel it. And the perception at the end of the day was what drove the outcome of the election. And so going forward, as we look at the balkanization of the information space and who's going to control what going forward, it almost doesn't matter what the reality is. If people are perceiving a particular idea, that matters.
Don't you think that the Americans looking around at their towns, at their airports, at their roads, at their healthcare system and education are a little bit frustrated? And then if they travel, when, well, it happens, that they see other countries, they say, wow, well, we are not performing very well objectively.
Well, I think it depends on who you are and where you are.
Yeah.
You know, there are certainly places where things are working well and others where not so much. But I think collectively, if I'm going to generalize, people are disenchanted with the cost of living. They're disenchanted with the cost of education and healthcare. There are certain things that I think that everyone can agree is problematic. And when they look around at, you know, how much our healthcare costs or prescription drugs, for example, when we can look north of the border or south of our border, and people are actually, they're going to these countries to get their own prescription drugs filled because they can't do it in a meaningful way in the U.S. that's equitable.
So final question to you, as being a supporter of the rather Democratic Party, what do the people feel, those who voted for Harris now? What do they expect?
Well, look, I think that there's been a period over the course of the last 2 months where many people went from the spectrum of being very angry to accepting the reality as it is and trying to figure out how to move forward. And if there are ways, and I think we've discussed some of them here, about the democratic mobilization of minority groups and civil society organizations and pro-democracy groups, they're ready to go and they're prepared to fight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your input.
Thanks very much, Anthony, Joe, for joining us here at TVP World from Washington. Now, there's a time to take another vote here in our Warsaw studio. Right, we do have the final results already. They changed a bit. It's 33% for the motion and 67% against the motion. Well, no matter how successful Donald Trump will be on delivering his political manifesto, America is not going to remain as we have known it for decades. It might be great or not, but it will be different, especially for Europe and Asia.
Indeed, we Europeans have a lot to think about. That's all for tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. This was Warsaw Debate on TVP World.
And for more content from the region, follow us on tvpworld.com and on our social media. Till next time, goodbye.
Bye.